All right, I'm here with Steven Cerenzio. Steve, tell me about your credentials.
I graduated from UCF with an exercise science degree. I've been working with professional athletes for almost 10 years now, from wakeboarders, water skiers at the world championship level to track and field athletes on and off. I managed and ran a CrossFit gym for 3 years, and I've done a lot of personal training in between. And I just currently became the assistant strength and conditioning coach at Montverde for high school and middle school athletes.
Do you work with any professional athletes now?
Yes, I work with a handful of 100, 200, and 400 meter sprinters for Adidas. We go to the Olympics every year. We snagged 6 medals from the Olympics in 16 at Rio. We won a couple of world championships, broke 3-4 world records in the last 2-3 years, and hopefully things go well this year as well.
So you teach those guys Olympic lifting?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you teach anybody else Olympic lifting?
Everyone I work with.
Is that right? So as a coach, what's the most important part of instructing beginners with Olympic lifts?
In regards to the Olympic lift specifically, the receiving position. If we're gonna give a specific answer, so if we're gonna talk about the snatch, you have to be able to show me an overhead squat, and if we're gonna talk about the clean or the jerk, you have to be able to show me a good front squat, because those are the fundamental shapes.
Both of your feet are in the right spot, you'll stand it up, and then begin your 3 overhead squats. You have to finish the power snatch before you overhead squat. Does that make sense?
So what do you think the benefit is of teaching athletes to do Olympic lifting?
The same benefit that anyone would get out of learning any new sport. It's a very complicated movement, but if you learn something, it's high risk, high reward. So if you don't know what you're doing, I don't know if it's necessarily the best thing in the world. So you got to be comfortable demonstrating it, teaching it, breaking it down, and building it up. So it's not a walk in the gym and nail it on the head on day one. It's something that you spend days, weeks, months, years developing and getting better at, and so you just keep yourself in check along the way.
So where do you begin? What are some of the first few drills you have novices attempt?
If they've never done anything at all, we just look at the squat and the hinge, right? The squat or deadlift, and you could call it hip hinging and knee bending, but making sure that they have some sort of capacity or competency inside of basic air squats, lunges. Can they put their arms over their head? Do they understand what a neutral spine is? Little things like that. I don't have to actually put a bar on someone to evaluate if they're going to be good at Olympic weightlifting. It's just how well you move.
Hip, snatch. If we put weight on the bar, it'll just become shins from here. But if we don't have weight on the bar, I'm not going to have you pick up your back, pick it up from around your position. Does that make sense?
What would you say most beginners usually have the most trouble with?
The mobility aspect. Depending on the beginner, if we're talking about a child, it's slowing them down and letting and just understanding control. They just don't control their bodies great, and then the older you get, I guess you get stiffer. So the mobility and if anything, understanding that that they're overly strong for where they're at. So they can squat 315, but they can't front rack a PVC pipe. So just because they're strong enough to do the movement, they don't have the proficiency to.
So is that something you sort of build into the program to overcome,
Yeah,
like a lot of
absolutely.
mobility work at the beginning?
Most of the time, they don't even know that I'm actually building them up towards working towards Olympic lifting, just because I don't even really care if they ever Olympic lift. I just think it's fundamental to good movement just kind of builds into it. So the better you move, the easier it comes. It's a function of being able to put your arms over your head properly. It's a function of being able to squat without being too toe or too heel dominant, and just good balance and control. And so you can start with something like a wall ball or a basic goblet squat. And when you look at those shapes, they kind of look like the front squat, and then the front squat kind of looks like the clean, and then you just you layer it on top of each other.
Makes sense. So what kind of cues do you find when you start teaching the actual movements, the cleans and the snatches and the front squats and the overhead squats? What kind of cues do you find help beginners kind of get the movement the most?
We slow it down. slow it down, a lot of pausing, a lot of holding, I guess isometrics, right? So, like I was just working with those kids, we hold in shapes, and we spend time in those shapes, so I get to see them hold it, they get to know what it's holding, and then there's a lot of correction. There's a little bit of responsibility with Olympic weightlifting, so like they get lazy. So constantly just being on top of them, holding basic shapes with their spine, with their shoulders, with their legs, and just the more time you spend doing something, the better you get at it. It's not rocket science.
So you think as much as it's a lot of effort for the athlete, it's a lot of effort for the coach as well? To
Yeah, it's a full-time job. Yeah, it's not just 3x10 of do this exercise and you're going to get better at it. It's finding that line of being aggressive with your coaching, but letting them work at the same time. Because when I first started doing this, I was way too like, knees at 90 degrees, this at 90, it's got to be perfect, like, oh God, you know, like, and now it's like you give them, you drip feed them a little bit. It's like, hey, we're going to work on this aspect, and you keep the load so light and that you know they're not going to hurt themselves. I'll crush you on a PVC pipe just from working on good positions. So I'm not worried if you mess it up, because no one's perfect. So you're not going to get it right for a couple of years.
Olympic lifting should be a part of strength programs for high school and youth athletes?
If you got a coach that's going to teach it. If you ain't going to coach it, no.
So in that case, then, what do you think is the best way to incorporate Olympic lifts into young athletes programs? If you have a coach that's capable of doing it.
If you got a coach that's capable of doing it, you do exactly what we were just talking about. You start with the fundamentals, and it's a course. We're not going to teach calculus on day one. We start with what are numbers, and then we put symbols. And then you layer it on top. We write letters, we put sentences together, and we write paragraphs, and we write books. It's the same with Olympic lifts. Like, if you are not 110% confident with a front squat, then I am not 110% confident with you doing a clean yet. So the more competent the athlete becomes, the more you can feed them. And the cool way that I try to do it is there's progressions up and down. So we can start with, I can call it a clean. I can have 20 kids that have never walked in before, that I've never worked with before, and we're going to work on a clean. Well, some of them may know what a clean is, and we can load it up. We might max out. Some of them may have no idea what that word even is, so we can start by just, hey, can you keep your chest up and squat, and then you visualize. So like I like using a lot of visual cues. I like to demonstrate myself, and I think that's a big part of it. Is like that coach has got to be ready to demonstrate, because most athletes are visual.
It's true. So how can coaches build a program that incorporates Olympic lifting as a part of it, if it's not the entirety of the program, if it's just a part?
Yeah, actually, funny you say that, because I don't work with any Olympic weightlifters, but I teach Olympic weightlifting, right? So you layer it in with your preps and your warm-ups, and you got time, especially with kids. You got all the time in the world. I didn't learn how to Olympic weightlift when I was in high school. I wish I did. It would have helped. But you just start with basics. Like I'm going to keep saying the front squat for the clean, but we could even layer it farther back. Like, you just start by shaping. Like I've been using this word a ton. Is you start with shapes. Like, that shape kind of looks like that shape. So we work on just getting them more experience with it, and once again, there's no coach in the world, I don't care who you are, that is going to write a perfect program for 20 kids. So you better be ready to kind of adapt and coach on the fly.
That makes good sense. Do you ever have like specific drills or exercises, for example, like you said before, a goblet squat or like a high pull or anything like that, to get some of the benefit out of Olympic lifting, right, with the explosive triple extension?
Yeah, absolutely.
In order to do that for somebody that doesn't have
high
that
pulls are
confidence.
great. High pulls are great. Kettlebell swings are great. Dumbbell snatches are great. I've worked with athletes that have injured wrists, or we can't even take that risk. A jump looks a whole lot like it. A box jump looks like it. All these basics look very similar. You don't even, I trick them into Olympic weightlifting. Like, a wall ball looks a whole lot like the clean and jerk if you really break down the lines. And so if they're not good at wall balls, there's no way I can get them to do a clean and jerk. So you start as simple, and you don't even tell them that they're doing it. They're ready for it before they know they're ready for it. So that's how I like to do it. It's more fun that way.
Anything else you think is important?
That coach better know what they're doing. If you are not, if you can't do a clean and jerk or a snatch or a proficient squat, don't teach it. Like, if you've never driven a car, don't be a driving instructor. Like, it's just not, you're gonna die.
That's a good way to put it. Very cool. Thanks very much for your time, Steve.
Thank you.